All right, guys, I am live here joining you from my little cave. So thanks for being here. I should wear my hat so you can see the hats are here. It covers my bad hair day. And let's see who we got here. Malaysia. Thank you. I don't know what it says there. Okay. A lot of people. By the way, I'm going to kind of have a little hard time reading some of this stuff here on my iPad, because I have my iPad in front of me, so I don't look at my computer, which is over there. But I will do my best to answer your questions. I'll get them up on the screen. I'll do things like this, so you can see it right on the screen, and then that will give me a little better opportunity to see what I'm seeing. By the way, guys, if you are here and you don't know yet that the new store is live. I don't know how to actually put that up here, but somewhere, hey, Doug, good to see you, my friend. But there is a way that I can put a link here, or somebody can put a link here. Basically, I'm gonna tell you, here's the drill. Go to robertcabral.com and then click on shop, S-H-O-P, and you'll see I now have an ability where you can order the hats or the shirts from the site, from here in Los Angeles, or if you are somewhere overseas, such as Malaysia or Europe or something like that, you can order the t-shirts and some of the other accessories from overseas. A lot of you guys have been asking for that, so I kind of got that hooked up. It's a little different system, a little different way to do it, but I am glad you guys are here. Anthony, good to see you, my friend. I don't want to spend too much time looking down, because then I will not be looking up at the camera, and that would appear very, very rude. So I just did a live on Instagram, which, by the way, I don't understand the whole thing with Instagram and Facebook. I know they're owned by the same conglomerate, but I've had my YouTube and Facebook account almost the same amount of time, but my Facebook account is stuck at 137,000 followers. I mean, it doesn't budge. I see new people coming in, doesn't budge. Doesn't budge at all. It's always the same. But YouTube is growing. We're almost 200,000 subscribers, active subscribers. And I see new people coming into Facebook and Instagram all the time. The number doesn't change. And I don't know why. I don't really care. But I'm just talking about that because it's a little annoying. What I want to talk about today, guys, is why do we train our dogs? What's the reason we train our dogs? I'm going to get into your questions as well. This is a 1-hour chat. I'm going to try to do these a little bit more regularly. But the idea really is, everybody thinks, oh, like I've got friends who have dogs. They say, well, I don't train my dogs. I don't want to compete with my dogs. Or I don't train my dogs because my dogs are well behaved, and all those different reasons. But that's not why we train our dogs, right? Let me explain something to you that I think will make a lot of sense. And this is something that you can share. Now, if you're here, obviously you're interested in training your dog, or you love dogs. But when I tell you this, I think it'll make a huge impression on you, and something you can kind of share with other people. And it'll also cement the idea of why you're doing what you're doing in training with your dogs. Training dogs isn't getting them to do tricks or obedience or do this or do that. Training our dogs is for one single solitary reason. And that reason is to communicate with them, right? It's through the training that we open the channel of communication with our dogs. And that communication is what really builds our relationship. So if you want to have a good relationship with your dog, you want to be able to communicate with them. It's like two people living in the same house speaking two different languages. But these aren't two different languages. These are this is a cross-species communication. So you need to understand canine body language. Your dog needs to understand what you want in order to get what he or she wants. Without training, without that communication, you do not have the ability to really have a solid relationship with your dog. You might be happy, you might think you're happy, you might think your dog is happy, and they might be happy. But the relationship is not complete until you learn to communicate. Communication is the greatest skill that we possess, because we communicate with each other, and we have a really strong sense of communication through language. Now, other animals in the wild, for example, I always refer back to this because I think that's at the root of our being, of our core. You'll hear, for example, in the jungle, if you're in Africa, and you'll hear these cackles or these screams coming from monkeys or birds that are high in the trees because they see a lion or they see a leopard or something, they know there's a threat. So that communication opens up between species. They know that there's a problem. Like, in other words, hearing an animal in distress is, I mean, you know that. You don't need to really understand if that animal's in distress. An animal that's happy is an animal that's happy. So that's something really important. I just saw a question here. Hang on a second. I'm trying to figure out. See, I got the iPad here, and I don't. Okay, here I can do this. Maligator Mom, I know you're here. Okay, do you teach an implied stay? Why or why not? Okay, that's a great question, and I want to talk about that. The implied stay, so in other words, what that means, implied stay means if I tell my dog sit and I walk away, should my dog stay? Or should I say sit, stay, and then walk away? Here's a simple way. This is one of the things I heard 10 plus years ago from a really good trainer. They said, if I say sit and I walk away, or I say sit, stay, and then walk away, if the dog breaks, the dog is breaking the command. In other words, you can't sit and move towards me. And sit doesn't mean sit and get up at your will. Sit means sit until I tell you something else. So there's always an implied stay in any static movement. For example, a static movement is a sit, a down, or a stand. Something like a bark or an active attack or something like that, or agility, those are in movement exercises. They have movement involved. Sit means sit. I always mean that to mean stay. Down means stay. For example, in competitive obedience, let's take, for example, IPO obedience. I'm going to run with my dog and I'm going to say plots, and the dog is going to lie down. I'm going to keep running for 10 to 15 more paces until I stop and turn around and look at the dog. The dog must understand that that is a command to continue to do that behavior until I say something else, until you're released or I give you another command. In AKC obedience, I would tell the dog, down, then stand. I would do that through a hand signal. Sit, and the dog would have to wait. Now, some dogs will predict because there's a simple pattern. You leave your dog in a stand, you tell him down, you tell him sit, and you tell him recall. Now, you'll see that the judge will stand behind the dog and tell you, okay, now tell the dog down, and you give them the hand signal for down, and they go down. They know, because they've done it 1,000 times, that the very, very next thing is going to be up, sit, and they'll predict it and they'll do it, or they'll go into the down from the stand because they know it's coming. So those kind of what we call predictive behaviors are things that the dog will start to think about doing because he knows it's coming. You want the dog to act on the command and the moment that you give it, not to predict what's about to come. So there's your answer to that question. I got to keep remembering to use and by the way, that would have been here. If you guys don't follow Maligator Mom, she's got some really interesting videos on living with Malinois, which is very, very unique. Okay, Mitchell, thank you for being here. Okay, you want to become a dog trainer, any tips? Well, train dogs, right? So it's, as much as that sounds silly or trite, it's simple. If you want to be a dog trainer, do exactly what you're doing, right? Train dogs, help your friends with dogs, go volunteer at a shelter and train dogs. If you know somebody who has a dog and you can work with the dog, that's how I cut my teeth on it. I just was helping friends with their dogs. Then I was going into the shelter, working with those dogs, and it kind of exploded from there. By the way, I've said this 1,000 times. I never wanted to be a dog trainer. I never did. I still really don't think it's the best use of my time. I mean, I love it. I love helping people with it, but I think it's so simple, right? I mean, I would rather be doing YouTube videos, interviews and stuff like that because I think it's more interesting. But I mean, as long as you guys are here and you need help training your dogs, I'm here for that. So find friends who have dogs, who need help, and get them out there. Okay, dog trainer. Let's see. When's it going to start? Abdus, it's started, man. It started. Let's see. Okay, doctor. I'm going to scroll way to the bottom. If I didn't get to your question, just all right. Yeah, here, Anthony. Anthony volunteered at a lot of rescues and stuff like that. He's a good trainer in New York City. Came out and did an internship, a short internship with me, and He's out there banging it, making business and doing it. I'm gonna see if I can make this smaller. Oh boy, let me see. You know, sometimes I feel old when I can't control these things on screen and I start squinting. I think my dad used to do that. Okay, German Shepherd only barks at passing by dogs when gate is closed, but he is very friendly and plays if the gate is open. That's basically what we call barrier aggression. The reason dogs do that is because of their frustration at the barrier. It's super common, like Goofy and Maya will bark if somebody's outside, and if they're at the door, they'll bark at the door, and you open the door, they're like, oh, hey, there you are. Barrier aggression is something I've taught a lot in shelters, because in shelters, the dogs, it can actually be a death sentence for the dog. So just let the dog be a dog, let the dog do these things, and just, you know, call the dog back. And you're not going to fix barrier aggression. The only way you're going to fix barrier aggression is through constant exposure. Let's see. Karina says, leash reactive dog is more interested in meeting dogs on walks than me. Doing 180 degrees term seems to jack him up. When in full drive excitement, should I just head home? Well, if you do that, that's not a bad thing to do, right? But the thing you want to really do is you've got to have control over your dog. What you might consider doing here, Karina, is getting your dog in a situation where he's not quite that jacked up. The people are at a distance, and make distance your friend. So in other words, if he's having a problem at 20 yards, then go to 25 yards, work the dog, because he's going to be jacked up, and then go down to 20 yards. And then once he's successful, reward, and then stop the exercise. You can't just stop and say, well, we're not going to do this, we're going to go home, because you're going to put yourself in a pickle. He's excited. You need to be able to control that excitement. That's one of the things I always get into with you guys, is that you should get a dog that you can handle, right? Well, I collaborate with that Enzo and Lotus to work on Lotus's anxiety. If they call me, I mean, I know Will. Will's a friend of ours. So, yeah. Okay, Paul, just so you know, all you guys, put a question mark in front of the question so I know it's a question. If not, I just go right past them. 8 months old, no, 8 months old is definitely never too late to learn. Mark, what's this? Love my interviews. There hasn't been one. Yeah, all the guests that I get are just top shelf, and they're friends, and they're people I know, and they're very knowledgeable. And you'll always take something away from my interviews. Jarek, I hope it's Jarek, not Jarek. I'm not quite sure. Let's see. What is your solution for in-house aggression between two dogs? That's very, very, very hard to do. Now, if you have two females, it's nearly impossible to do. But the key thing really is going to be isolation. Like, in other words, you're going to have one dog out, be able to totally control that dog. Then you have to have the other dog out and totally be able to control that dog. You must have individual control over each dog before you bring them together. The second thing you're going to do then is you're going to bring one dog out, and since you have that control over them, you can keep one in a crate or put one in a place command. So if the dog starts to move towards, let's say to instigate aggression, then you should be able to say no and put that dog back in its place. Once they engage, if they're playing or in the tussle, you ain't gonna break it up. That's just not gonna happen. How do we train when the dog predicts the behavior? I'm seeing my 1-year-old predicting next, especially. I think you mean next step. So the way we predict, we counter train that is because, let's say we're always doing the same thing. Perfect example is if you watch my video, the 3 biggest mistake dog trainers make is they tell the dog sit, stay, or whatever, right? And then they walk away, and then they say, come. Sit, stay, they walk away, come. So the dog will always know sit, stay, come. Every pet dog trainer does it. Everyone I've ever seen. I don't know why. You must untrain that by doing like a tactile release, or by throwing a ball behind them, or something like that to break the pattern. I always say consistent inconsistency. My secret to training is consistent inconsistency. My dog never knows what I'm going to do, even though Goofy has trained with me for 11 years. There's always something new. There's always something a little bit different. Okay, what's this here? Whoops, I wanted to do you here, Dr. Glow. How do I increase my 7-month-old lab focus on me? Thanks for you've already told me. Well, the easiest way to increase his focus on you is to do something he loves and make his interaction with you a necessity. The thing with a lab, the easiest way to do that is going to be by using food. If you have food, labs love food. If you hand feed the dog, if you have something, you'll get the dog to I mean, Dwayne and Jimmy are super focused on me and super focused on Janet. Janet's always having him do little tricks and giving him treats and stuff like that. Food is a great equalizer for labs. So I want to answer this one here from Nico. Thoughts on using a bonker? I don't like the bonker, right? I mean, I'm not saying I would never use it. I'm not saying I would not use an interruptive type behavior, because I do them all the time. But I think what happens is something comes up, right? Like the bonker was around forever, right? I mean, why is his name completely blanking out on me? Bill William Keeler. Used the similar methods for years, but nobody talks about it now. They're talking about the new guys doing it. So I'm not a big fan of it. Let's see, where are we here? Okay, Jesse, what do I look for besides deciding to bring a 1.5-year-old German Shepherd home? I have a 1.5-year-old daughter, but no other pets, not first-time dog owner, but first-time. Well, I'll tell you what I would do. I would want to know what this dog's background is. I want to know if this dog is good with other people, with other dogs. I would want to know, does the dog have prey drive? Most importantly, if I had a 1.5-year-old daughter, I would ask the home where this German Shepherd came from, has this dog been around children, right? Because you don't want to put your child in danger. That's it. You want to know, and people are going to they're going to give me crap. They're going to say, oh, you know, your number one priority is not the dog that you haven't gotten. It's the dog you got, but it's your child, it's your family, it's your daughter, your son, your wife, your husband, your niece, your nephew, whatever. If you bring a dog into the house and it causes havoc, it attacks your children, it's attacking other dogs, it's neurotic, it's this. I mean, look, all dogs deserve a home. I get it. All dogs, we want to do the right thing. But the bottom line is, your number one priority is your family. And that's it. Like, you don't want to look at your life and bringing a dog into the house that's going to make your life miserable. So, and if you guys don't like that if you don't like what I'm saying, that's it. But I'm only speaking the truth. Some people can't handle the truth, obviously, as noted by the 3 thumbs down, which I always love to see. Okay. Holomachi. Thanks for the thumbs up. I saw that one pop up. I see it and like peripherally. I see this thumb going like this. And I go, okay, well, that's somebody who liked what I said. And if I see this, that's somebody who doesn't. See, I just saw that. And I don't know who does the thumbs up. I don't think there's any way for me to tell who's doing the thumbs up, but I don't also know who does the thumbs down. And you know what? Don't matter. How do you make your dogs bark at objects? Now he just turns around and barks at me. So I talked about this in a question yesterday on the membership section. Your easiest way to get a dog to bark at something is to frustrate them. So a lot of times people will hold something, right? They'll hold the toy and they'll try to frustrate the dog with it. And sometimes that will work, but a lot of times dogs that are really conditioned won't bark at you because of your relationship with them. They feel like I'm kind of violating that relationship. So the way we get the dog to bark at us is to put, like what I did with Goofy, is I would take his favorite toy and I hung it up just like on a tree where he just couldn't get to it, and he would look and he was would go on. It's not easy, right? Because you're going to try to tell the dog bark and do this and do that, but that doesn't always work, right? So you have to just be patient and kind of let the dog figure it out. And the minute he barks, boom, he gets the toy. And he'll start to figure that out. It took several days for me to get Goofy to bark. It wasn't easy, but once you do it, it's there. Mary, how do you handle an off-leash dog running towards you while training your leash reactive dog? There's some things you can't. Like people used to say when I taught karate, they said, what if 3 people with guns come at you? I said, well, I'm going to get shot. And that's it. If it's an impossible question, like what can you do, right? I mean, if I have my dog and my dog's leash reactive and another dog comes charging at my dog, I'm going to get in that dog's face. I'm going to make as much noise and as much energy towards that dog before my dog can get into it. I'll pull my dog close and boom, move forward. Hey, get your dog. And I'll yell at the dog, or I'll throw a rock or a stick or something to get that dog away from me and push that dog away spatially through my pressure, because my pressure is going to be a lot more than my dog's pressure. I'm going to put a lot more pressure on the dog. This is not easy if you're a smaller person, or a weaker person. It's a lot harder. How do I adjust fear of hands? A returned 6-month-old Belgian Malinois ducks when you. So the fear of hands is not really that hard to undo. Usually it's very predictive around a person. Like it'll be a guy who smacked the dog, and then the dog sees guys as being bad and that. Easy. You feed the dog. You hand feed the dog. It's the easiest way to get the dog to unlearn something, is to learn something positive. So if I see a hand, I think it's bad, and suddenly that hand is bringing me food, and all the food comes with that hand, the dog will start to like that hand. That's not a tough one to undo. Israel, I'm watching you lately. I have a 12-week-old Malinois. She has a cut in her front right paw. I cleaned with water. What else should I do? Why did it happen? I don't know. How would I know? I'm a dog trainer, not a psychic. I got no idea, Israel. But I'll tell you what you should do. You should always consult a vet. But if you have a wound, you should always wash it out with something antibacterial. Water alone is good to flush it, but you can use like some dial soap. You can put some betadine on it. You can put some peroxide in it. But then you gotta, if it's a big gash, you're gonna probably have to get, stitches in it. Waleed, would it be wrong to have my pup's favorite toy hidden on walks and pull it out under my armpit to redirect when passing by other dogs to prevent lunging? Yes. Yeah, before he fully learns focused healing. So, I always try to tell you guys, don't use focused healing as a counter to aggression, because if the dog is fearful of something and then you're asking him not to look at it, to look at you and stay focused on you, you're just putting your dog in a position to fail, right? So don't do that. Don't put that dog in that position. That's a really bad thing to do. Teach the dog to focus to you, not focus locked onto you, and get the dog to engage you. The dog must be able to, if he's afraid of something and he's looking at it, it's a lot safer than if he's forced not to look at it and he's kind of knows it's there, he's going to just blow a gasket. So be careful on that. Thank you, Eddie. Thank you, Abdus. Okay, Jeffrey. Do you know any Chicago, Illinois area train a Malinois? I have police that trains but don't have too much info on them. I don't know. I don't know offhand anybody in Chicago. I'm sorry. Luis. I think it's Luis. I've trained black labs very successfully. What difference should I expect in terms of training a German Shepherd pointer? I have no experience with German Shepherd pointers. Well, pointers are a lot higher drive than labs, right? I mean, did you train the labs in hunting, in field work or anything like that? Because if you did and you had a field lab and now you've got a pointer, it's similar, but I still think the pointers are wound a little bit tighter. I think that's going to be your primary difference. But, run around and see some other, some pointers, see what the training's like. Sorry if the question is out of topic, just joined the live. My 13-week-old German Shepherd is biting only my sister's feet. Redirection doesn't work in this case, happens only with her. Thank you, Robert. Well, depending on the situation, what I would do is first of all, it's a 13-week-old puppy. More than likely, the puppy is engaging her to play. I don't know how old your sister is. You didn't give me that information. But more than likely is going to grow out of it. Your sister is probably doing something that's probably the weaker of the people around, so maybe smaller, maybe just smaller in stature, size, or something like that, or weaker in personality. And the dog is just engaging her to play with her. Maybe the other people have made it very clear to the dog not to do that, and she hasn't been able to do that. So you need to do that. Thank you for this. This is important. You need to put a question mark before your question so that I know it's a question, just like Christo did here. Christo said, what do you think about Vizslas? Thank you. I'm not a big fan of Vizslas. I'm not a big fan of Weimaraners either. And they're very, very similar type dogs. I'm a shepherd person. That's pretty much my thing. I love labs. Love dachshunds too. But it takes a certain, there's a breed for everybody. Now, all dogs can be trained. All dogs can be trained using similar techniques. Not the same, but similar techniques, which is basically reward and consequence. You want to make sure that you understand the basic temperament and drive of the dog you're going to get. I understand Shepherds very, very well. I understand Pit Bulls very, very well. I've trained probably more Pit Bulls than I've ever trained Shepherds, but I kind of bond with Shepherds, in particular Malinois, not necessarily like Australian Shepherds. I think they're really cute and really cool, but I probably would never get one. So you probably always see me with a Malinois or a German Shepherd. Patrick, how do you teach an 11-month-old Appenzeller Mountain Dog to go into the pool? Well, there's a couple ways. One is you can find something he loves and lure him into the pool. The second thing you can do is you can take the dog and carry him into the middle of the pool and let him swim out. That's the two methods I've always used. I've either lured the dog in, I get in the pool, and I'll have some treats or a toy, and I'll walk backwards into the pool. Dog follows me. I make a big deal, good boy, good boy. And then I teach him how to swim out. I always teach dogs how to swim out of pools, not how to get into pools. That's why if the dog doesn't want to get in the pool, I still make it a point to get the dog in the pool, because if the dog doesn't want to get in the pool, this is a really important piece. If the dog does not want to get into a pool and you say, well, he doesn't want to get in the pool, we're cool. You're not. Because if the dog falls into the pool accidentally, the dog is going to panic, because I've already shown you that he doesn't want to be in the pool. He doesn't like water. You must, if you have a pool on your property, that's a huge, huge, huge piece. You must make it okay for the dog to be in the water, right? So you might have to carry him in. You might get scratched up. But I did it with every dog I've ever trained. I carried him into the pool. I let him swim out. I carry him in, and I do it 3 or 4 times. Then if they don't like the pool, fine, you can get out. Vincent says, what is your take on the stay and place cue? Is there a need to teach both? Well, I think I just answered that before from Alligator Mom when she was asking me about an implied stay. If I send a dog to a place, then I kind of expect the dog to stay in that place until I release him. That's real simple. Stephen? Oh, that was you, Stephen. Sorry. Yanisel. Thank you so much for everything you do. Can you use leave a command with a puppy mouthing in a case a puppy already gets your hand? It's interesting. I would say no, right? Leave it command is about more benign things, like something laying around or something, leave it. Your hand, when the dog puts his mouth on your hand, is more of it's an interaction between you two, and your personality needs to stop that. So leave it, no, I wouldn't use leave it on that. I would teach the dog, to not do that, scruff the dog, because the dog should know, unless you're training a protection dog, you don't want, and even with a protection dog, but protection dogs we let them get away with a lot because we want to keep those drives nice and high. We don't want the dog to think that biting is a bad thing, so we kind of let them get away with it. We play with them a little bit and then put them away. Where a pet dog, we want to make it aversive right away. And I'm not saying aversive, we're going to punish the dog, but aversive where you're going to correct the dog, hey, knock it off, and get the dog to not desire to put things in his mouth. I hope that makes sense to you. What is best? So temperament testing is something that I have an issue with a lot, because I think most people don't understand dog behavior enough. I developed a temperament test that I used in shelters for 10 years called the BARC, B-A-R-C, and that was the Behavior Assessment and Reactivity Checklist. And it was really just a checklist of behaviors the dog would do, and then I could determine how the dog would best be placed. It's on boundangels.org. You can look at it there. In fact, we had an app, but the app is no longer supported. I got to pull that off the site too. You want to make sure that the dog or the puppy that you're assessing is in a neutral place as much as possible. I mean, I did it at the shelter, but I took that into account. Remember, a temperament test or behavior assessment is a snapshot of that dog's behavior at a given time, with a particular person on a particular day in a particular situation in a particular mood for that dog. He might have had a bad day. He might have had an upset stomach. He might have just been neutered. He might have just whatever that is. It's a snapshot. So I'm really against all these temperament tests that people put out there that just assess the dog and really try to determine that. Now, the temperament testing, like the Volhard test and stuff like that, they're done really early on, and it's really neutral, and it really will help the dog quite a bit. So I like some of them, but when I hear temperament test, my initial thought is life and death in a shelter. So Seth, 9-month-old Dobie barking at passing by runners and bikes, even when she is with me in the car. So if it happens more when she's in the car, then I would put a bark collar on the dog. In other words, Goofy and Maya are really crazy when they're in the car because they're behind the barrier. I keep my dogs in crates in the car, and I would really be super careful how to correct that. In other words, what you're dealing with if you're out and something's going by the dog, you're just dealing with prey drive. The dog's excited, the dog wants to play, and then you can use simple obedience, redirecting the dog, putting the dog in some kind of an obedience situation, or something similar to that. But if it's in the car and the dog's just going crazy, I like putting a bark collar on, and I'm going to be doing a video, hopefully today or tomorrow, on the difference between bark collars and e-collars that I think will really help you. Again, I'm just pulling out the ones with question marks in the front. So you always notice if you look right here, right there, see that those are question marks. That's how I know it's a question. Other than that, you guys might just be talking about themselves, amongst yourselves. Christ, or Christ. I have 2 very well behaved and trained female dogs. I'm planning to get a 3rd female. Do you think it's a good idea? I have excellent control on my dogs, and I am really great in training. No, you can get all the females you want. What's the difference, right? If you're great at training and your dogs are under control, why would that even be a question? No doubt in my mind. Now see, I'm going to answer this, but you know why? Because I thought that was a question mark. See the little Asian characters? I thought it was a question mark. All right. Thoughts on using martingale collar on a 7-month-old puppy without behavior issue? Her head is too small and the flat leash slips out. 1,000% yes. You want to use a martingale. And martingales is the best collar you're going to use. That's my go-to starting collar that I would always use. By the way, I got the mugs up on the store. Mugs, hats, the Maya Every Day is Training Day t-shirt. You see it? Maya Every Day is Training Day with Maya the Flying Papaya. We've been selling quite a few shirts, so thank you for your support. I'd love to see you guys put more pictures of yourselves wearing them on Instagram and Facebook and tag me. Jeffrey says, as a police officer, love your video with the canine officer. Do you know a good trainer in Chicago, Illinois area to train a Malinois? I don't. I wish I did. I'm trying to find more people that I know that I can refer out. And Jeffrey, thank you for your work and your service. I appreciate it very much. I support our police officers everywhere and our military. Everybody knows that about me. Thank you for that. I don't recommend breeders ever. So if you're asking for that, I can't give you eyelid coming in, up or down. Still good for your algorithms. Okay. I don't know what that means. Dennis, treats, toys, nothing seems to work. Anatolian Shepherd training is good indoors, but once in public, if it's as if I don't exist. She will focus on things 100 yards away, not me. Well, so I don't want to be dismissive on this, because sometimes people tell me I'm too dismissive and too hard on people, but you might have gotten a dog that is too much for you, right? And I'll tell you this much. First of all, an Anatolian Shepherd is one of the most independent, stubborn dogs that you can possibly imagine. And if you got one, you should have known that, right? If you get a dog that has a certain behavior and you expect the dog to not have the behavior, it's in their DNA, right? If you got a herding dog and you don't want it to herd, then why did you get a herding dog? So the only thing I can tell you with a dog like an Anatolian Shepherd is, I don't know how big this dog is, I know how big you are, but the dog all animals must know you can control it. This is why most people will get a puppy, because the puppy, you're controlling it since it's small. So when it grows into the strength of a 60-pound dog, then even a guy, like for me, a challenge would be an 80 to 100-pound dog. But if I had that dog since it was 8 weeks old and 10 pounds, then I can easily control that dog. You see what I mean? And that dog, the lesson in that dog's mind is this guy can control me, and the dog kind of gives into that. Now, with this dog, I would probably say I would hand feed the dog. I would everything in this dog's life would come through permission from me. There would be no, hey. See, they're starting to bark at somebody outside. There would be no other way. And if you can't do that, then you can't control the dog, and that might just be the case, right? You got the dog you got. Remember, that's one of my favorite sayings. By the way, if you know my favorite saying, can you put them somewhere for me? Because Alan keeps saying I should do a shirt with one of my favorite sayings. And you got the dog you got is one of those. Maybe that should be the shirt. So yeah, you maybe just need to starve the dog for a day or so. And I'm not saying starve the dog. That's going to get taken out of condition. Starve the dog for a day or two. Like remember Phil Mickelson said he's doing intermittent fasting. So maybe you should fast the dog. Let's say fast, not starve. Fast the dog for a day or so, and then hand feed the dog in public. And if the dog doesn't pay attention to you, the dog doesn't get fed. Right? You must control the dog. If you got the dog, you must control the dog. Okay, wow, Alinby. Do you know of any good resources to learn dog body language? YouTube. I can't think of a better one. It doesn't even have to be a dog training site. Just watch videos on dogs and try to predict what they're going to do in 4 or 5 seconds based on the behavior they're doing now. That's how, YouTube was not as promising or as popular when I started out, so I didn't have that resource. I was in the shelter watching dogs, and I would say, okay, I think he's going to do this, and then he would do that. And I was like, okay, let's remember that behavior caused that. Really, really one of the best resources. Ciao. How do I teach my lab how to hold an object? I would present the item and she won't hold onto the object. Well, so what happens, and I've got videos on hold and retrieve. The hold is something that's conditioned. So sometimes you have to open the dog's mouth, put the object in, good boy, and then take it out. It's not easy when you have to do it through that methodology where you have to teach the dog to hold. You have to form the hold. It's not a forced fetch, and we've gotten a lot of gripe about that because some nutty people are going off on me about me saying I'm against a forced fetch. I've seen the forced fetch, forced retrieve taught. I didn't like it. So I made that public. See, if I have something I like, I tell you about it. If I have something I don't like, I tell you about it. Because you're here because you want my opinion. If you don't like my opinion, then you just shouldn't be here. Like, it's not nobody's forcing you to be here. There's not a communist situation where you have to be here. You're here because you want to be here. And that's the beauty of it. So if you want to be here, you're going to get my opinion. And if you don't like it, then that's it. Do you know anyone experienced with the black-mouthed cur? I don't. It's a very off-breed. I don't know. Ida. 9-month-old Tibetan Spaniel socialized with pack of dogs since puppy. No heel, sit, etc., but can lunge on lead from sit at unknown dogs. Does the dog understand the correction for lunging or breaking sit? Does the dog understand the correction for lunging? Or does the dog understand the correction is for lunging or breaking sit? Well, it doesn't matter because breaking the sit is creating the lunge, right? So you want to teach, the way I always teach that obedience, I tell the dog, sit, and then when the dog breaks, I go, no, sit. Then the dog realizes, okay, I need to stay in a sit. Now, I will tell you this much. If you have a young dog and the dog has a certain degree of prey drive, what I highly suggest you do is use redirection and re-engagement to get the dog to focus back on you as opposed to static. It's really hard for a frustrated dog to go to a static place unless the dog is very mature and trained. Asking a dog, sit, 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 when the dog is wound up tighter, just makes them more insane. So by creating that movement and getting the dog to focus back on you, it will relieve some of the dog's stress and get them to focus on you. And later, you can then teach the dog to sit. Astri. I am organizing a structured pack walk in my community. Do you have any tips? No. I think it's, by the way, what a great idea. You guys should all try to do something like this and organize pack walks with people in your community, people you know. You should socialize your dogs with dogs you know. You should socialize the people with people you know. I mean, we're all somewhat social creatures. So to be social, which we haven't been for the last year, is a blessing. It's a great thing to be able to communicate with people. I mean, I went back to Gold's Gym yesterday and saw so many of my friends, and shaking hands and hugging and seeing people and being interactive with people and being like that is such a blessing. It's such an important thing that we've kind of lost sight of. in recent times, like the last year. Everybody's so removed and so like, oh, don't come close to me. People are all freaked out and stuff like that. And if we do that with dogs, then they become very suspicious of that, which is why a lot of these pandemic dogs have ended up becoming so neurotic in their behaviors, because people don't let them pet them. Or, you might do whatever. I'm not even going to get into it because I don't want to get the video banned. But, we're social. You've got to be social. The more you can get dogs around other dogs, the better it is, without having them willy-nilly just go say hi and play with dogs you don't know. Once they get to know, Goofy, Maya, Dwayne, Jimmy, they're all best of friends. And if a friend has a dog around, then, they play with that, but I must know the dog. Why do you train dogs? Training and dogs world is becoming a big, big business. Well, it is a big business, and I'm very lucky in that I have a business that is very, very popular. But I was training dogs for free. I never really looked to make money on it. In fact, for years, I gave back all my dog training to do rescue work with Bound Angels. Rescue work, I was teaching in shelters. I wasn't making, I was making less than most waiters I knew back then. So I am very, very blessed. And by the way, I'm not ashamed that I make money doing what I do. Neither should anybody be. That's just part of life. Yanni or Johnny says, my neighbors have a very aggressive pit bull. He barks and launches to other dogs. My question is, how can I tell them that their dog has bad structure without them getting offended? Impossible. Completely impossible. It's kind of like the people who have really obnoxious children, right? Kids that are just obnoxious brats. You can never tell the parents that. You can't say your kid is a jerk. Your kid is obnoxious. You can't. You want to. You really, really want to. You can't do it. You can't do it. That's it. Let's see. Christ, you already said it. Chris, you already, whatever it is. You already asked a question. I'll give you this one too. And by the way, I already answered that question, so I can't answer it for you again. How do you stop them cutting in front of you when you're teaching them to walk to heel? Well, you correct them, right? If a dog cuts in front of me and I keep walking straight, the dog's going to get corrected by my taking up that space, so we call spatial pressure. So if the dog starts to walk in front of me, I'll continue to walk and I'll bump into them, and that will make them stop. Obviously that will make them stop. By the way, this is really nice. I'm looking at 202 people in here. Thank you for being here. Do me a favor, if you're one of these 202 people who is not subscribed to this channel, subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell, and you'll get updated on these videos. Whenever I do them, you'll know right away. You'll get updated on all my new videos. And if you haven't yet done so, run over to robertcabral.com. Get yourself a hat, a t-shirt, a mug, anything. And you're gonna love this stuff, right? You're gonna be thinking dog training all the time. By the way, the mugs on the site are a little different than this, but tell me that's not a super cool mug, right? I might take a drink while I'm here. Yeah, I'm gonna scroll all the way to the bottom because I think some things are repeating themselves. Likes for the algorithm, thanks, John. Okay, okay, what's this here? CJM. I have a 10-year-old German Shepherd mix. Hang on. Alan, it's not 15 frames a second on the shutter speed. It's just, this is just an automatic setting. Can't fix it. Oh, sorry, here. Okay, I have a 10-year-old German Shepherd Mal mix. It's a good idea to get a lower drive female German Shepherd. I've always had males one at a time, but I would like another dog to help my dog to stay active. A 10-year-old German Shepherd Mal mix. So I'm assuming it's a male? I don't know. Cross sex is always going to be easier. Yes, always, always, always easier. How do I use a choke chain to train my Husky to not lunge and pull hard on walks? I'm afraid he would choke himself too hard. Well, you teach them through leash pressure and teach them through redirection. You don't keep them on a tight leash. That's really, really important. Watch my videos. Watch my dog training videos on either here on YouTube, subscribe to this channel. I'm going to say it a couple more times. Subscribe to this channel and hit the notification bell so that you'll know when new videos are going up. Malligator Mom, that's very kind of you. Super chat, very, very nice of you. Not necessary, by the way. Not necessary, but appreciated. You know what it is to me? It's the gesture, right? If somebody does a super chat, it's not about the, $1, $5, $10, whatever dollars you're doing. It's just a gesture that you appreciate. I want to tell you guys something. I appreciate you. I come across kind of hard sometimes and kind of, crass sometimes, kind of gruff sometimes, I think. But I'm passionate about what I talk about, right? So I say things and I say it, maybe I say it in a way that doesn't resonate with you. I'm not the warm and fluffy kind of guy, right? I mean, I am for my wife, Janet, but for other people, it's about really getting a point across. That's what it really is. Dottie B, thank you for that super chat too. I'm not talking to get more super chats. I'm just saying, I want to tell you, I really appreciate you guys. You know why I appreciate you is because you're here listening to stuff that might not be fluffy. Somebody can come in and tell you how great you are and how this and how that. And what I'm really telling you here is the truth about what it takes to have a good relationship with your dog. You want to save a dog. And I used to do the same thing in the shelters. It's not pretty. It's not pretty. Sometimes you got to be harder on a dog. Sometimes you got to put your ego aside. Sometimes you got to be softer with a dog. It's not about being dominant over a dog or about being submissive over a dog. It's about being what that dog needs. You need to determine what your dog needs. And that's what's really, really important, right? It's not about what I'm telling you here. It's about figuring out what your dog needs and giving the dog that. That's really, really important. Tyler, how do I exercise a dog who has a lot of energy, but little drive for any particular job or game? Well, they have a drive for something, right? Every dog has a drive for something. That's the key. You've got to figure out what that drive is for. That's critical, critical, critical. How do I get a 10-month-old dog to not go crazy when she sees other dogs on her walk? I use a prong and she doesn't care about the leash pressure. So I'm going to stop you there, right? You're saying you use a prong and your dog doesn't care about leash pressure when this happens. So the leash pressure is not something you're teaching the dog during that time. That's when the dog should be going to the end of the leash, getting a correction and getting rewarded for coming back. That's critical. Leash pressure is what we use to teach a dog to avoid that leash pressure. So once you teach the dog the leash pressure, now you're going to teach the dog through corrections how to not engage in that dog. You might need to back up. You might need to take yourself away from the dog. Putting more pressure on a dog. I want to be really clear about this because it's going to probably be one of my last thoughts here. Not the last thought, but one of my last thoughts for the day is the bigger, faster, better, stronger idea that people have in dog training isn't always the right idea, right? So dominating the dog or correcting the dog harder and harder and harder and we've all done it. I'm not going to deny that I haven't made mistakes in dog training in my earlier times, but I've grown to be more understanding of the situation, and which is why I want to teach you, which I want you to understand. Just because you correct the dog harder and harder and harder doesn't mean the dog is going to acquiesce to what you want. That's really important to understand. You have to be clear that being fair with the dog, putting the dog in a situation where he is going to succeed that's your job. So if your dog is responding negatively to another dog and you are giving the dog a harder and harder and harder correction, then that's not working. Then you need to rethink it. And some of these nutty YouTube trainers and these other nutty, really dominant trainers are just going to go harder and harder and harder until they crush the dog. And that's bull. That's absolutely crap. That's not the way to train a dog. You have to figure out what the dog wants, what the dog needs, and how to give that to the dog. I mean, look at some of these dogs that that I've seen in IPO and in serious aggression. Like I have to help in the shelter. If you pull that nutty stuff on them, take your arm off, take your face off. Anyway, all right, Marcus. My 2-year-old dog is extremely energetic about training. He knows sit and down, sit and does it on command. when treats are involved. But when they're not present, he always goes into a down instead. How do I fix it? Well, you need to wean the dog off the treats properly. So what that's going to imply is going to imply giving the dog a correction for doing the wrong thing. That's it. Dog does the right thing, he gets one thing. He does the wrong thing, he gets a correction. So if you don't have a treat and you say sit and the dog lies down, put him on a leash, pop him, no, sit. Then bring out a reward and give him a treat. It's super easy. John, we're scheduled to take our 4-month-old German Shepherd tomorrow for an MRI in Pasadena. What's your opinion on puppies outgrowing seizures? Well, they can, but I'll tell you one thing. If you have a dog that's having seizures, there was some studies done, I think it was in the 1920s, about diet, of sugars. And again, I'm not a doctor, I'm not a dietitian, but I'm sharing with you things I know. Dogs that have seizures oftentimes can be helped a lot through diet. So I would really suggest you look into a ketogenic diet for that, because it's sugars and starches that can cause that. Bill, 7-month-old, Doberman, you want to be careful with jumping and too much impact on the joints until the dog's about a year to a year and a half old. That's it. Do you have a comprehensive start to finish training manual set videos? No. No, because I don't believe in a comprehensive set. Because if I would, the only way I could make you a comprehensive start to finish training manual for your dog is if I did it only for your dog. I really believe that the training on my site, on robertcabral.com, is the very, very, very best training that's available. Hands down. Because it's tailored toward you, the dog owner, the dog trainer, the human. It's tailored towards teaching you how to train your dog. And through the information that's on my site, you can train your dog. It will give you everything so that you can figure out start to finish how you need to train your dog. I can't determine that. I don't have your dog. I need to determine Dwayne trained differently than Goofy. Goofy trained differently than Maya. Every dog trains differently. You will have the tools by watching good dog training. And again, I'm not the only good dog trainer on YouTube. I'm not the only good dog trainer online. I'm sure there's others. I don't know who they are because I don't follow them. But I will tell you that you will have a comprehensive idea of what you should be doing with your dog if you follow the instructions. Every dog is different. Tom, any obedience advice for a 1-year-old high drive pit bull control in drive? Obedience, obedience, obedience. Build a good relationship, get strong obedience, and that's it. That is it. Kelly, dominant puppy. Well, again, I don't know the breed of your dog, but if you have a dominant dog, it's probably a dominant breed. And it's going with a dominant dog, you're just going to have to be fair. Right? Everything has to be fair. It means you do A, you get B. The dog is still at a small enough size where you can physically manipulate and control the dog. Once the dog gets bigger, you're going to have a lot in your hands. So I would really focus on developing a really nice relationship with that dog. Neutering dogs, I'll tell you, I talk about this all the time. The reason I tell people to neuter their dogs is because most people are completely irresponsible. And we have thousands of dogs dying in shelters because people are morons. They let the dogs run around in heat females, in intact males, and inevitably there's puppies, and then the puppies end up in a shelter, and the puppies end up not cared for properly because they weren't wanted in the first place. A good breeder always has homes for their dogs when they start the breeding process. So yeah, that's the only reason I would say that. Okay, let's see. Last one here, Kelly. My 7-month-old German Shepherd did board and train for 7 weeks. He has been home for a month and mouths hard when I touch him or put collars on, snapping and lunging at me when give e-collar correction and bites while driving. Well, first of all, I don't know who you sent your dog to that is 7 months old, they're on an e-collar already. That's a little bizarre to me. I don't know why. But I would certainly talk to that trainer, right? Why would a 7-month-old dog so that means 7 weeks means you gave them the dog when he was 5 months old. Why would they put a 5-month-old dog on an e-collar? That's nutty to me. I don't get it. Pastor Frank, how to keep my 6-month-old Malinois. She jumps on people when they come over. Put her in a crate. Put her in a crate or put her on a little line. That's important. Make sure she's on a line. And if, when she's going to jump, step on the line. And this way she can't jump up. Put her in a crate. When she's calm, bring her out. That's all I can tell you. Chihuahua, aggressive. You know, Chihuahuas are naturally can be very aggressive. But training. At least you have a small dog. You know, if you're gonna neuter a dog, make sure that they have sexual maturity, that they've gone through their growth cycles, which I guess would be about 2 years old. That's all I'm gonna say about that. Yeah, I'll make this the last one, and I gotta talk to Alan because he thinks there's something wrong with the shutter speed on my camera, which there's not. But anyway, what dog training issues have you found difficult to overcome? People. That's it. People who are not consistent with their dogs. That's really, really, really the biggest one, right? People who don't follow through, people who aren't consistent in training. That's always the biggest one. And that's it. So guys, listen, 216 people, 114 thumbs up. On your way out, give this a thumbs up. In fact, I'm going to end this now. You can go out now, give the video a thumbs up. And I'd love to really see, Tutor, okay, you said you sent a super chat. I didn't see it. Post it again really quick, and I'll see if I can see it. Give this video a thumbs up, but please subscribe to this channel. Subscribe. I'd like to be over 200,000 by the next week or two. That's the goal. We're at 196,500. Oh, here we go. Okay, here we go. I want to thank you for your passion and help with my dogs. I've been training my German Shepherd for 2 years now and had great results from your videos on the website. God bless you and Janet. Tutor, God bless you, and thank you for that. Thank you for your super chat, and thank you for your kind words. All of you guys, thank you for being here. Thank you for listening. Thank you for training your dogs with me, letting me be a part of this journey, because you know what's going to happen is in 10, 15 years from now, your dog might not be here anymore, but you're going to remember the great relationship you had, and you'll remember that relationship is part of what you had because you trained your dog with me. And the fact that we're bonded for life over this means a lot to me. And I hope I could just inspire you to do great work with your dog and just love your dog and make it a great time. So I'm going to hang up now, guys. I'm going to get out, hang up, kind of get out of this because I got to get into a members chat. So if you're a member, I'll see you in about 2 minutes. Bye. Thanks for being here.